So I want to talk to you about how you refinance and release equity and do it another way and don't pay all that crazy tax. Number one, if you sell the property, you're giving away £15,000 of income. Number two, you're paying £100,000 in tax. How much tax do you have to pay on that £40,000? Nothing. Why? Well, because you haven't sold it.
Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Money Matters. What I want to focus on in this episode of Money Matters, it's how do you refinance property as a beginner? Yeah, the difference this will make to your life, if you understand it, is immense. And you're sort of sat there thinking, how on earth do these people get to live in, all these crazy places and do all the, fancy cars and whatever? It's this thing. It's called property finance. Because if you understand, this is as simple as it is. You can go and borrow, within limits, insane amounts of money. Now the trick, of course, is learning how to use that money to make more money than it costs you. If you can borrow £1 for 10 years, and you know how to use that pound to make 50 pence a year, in 10 years' time, you'll have made £5. Now, how much does it cost you to borrow that pound for the next 10 years? Well, if you said it was going to cost you 6-7% a year, over the next 10 years, it's going to cost you 100%. So in 10 years' time, you've got to give back £2. You've got to give back the pound you borrowed, plus another pound. If you learned how to make £5 using somebody else's money, and it only costs you £2, well, that's £3 for you. Now, at that sort of primary school level of finance, but if you know how to borrow £1 to make £5 and it only costs you £2, how much money are you going to borrow? You're going to borrow as much money as humanly possible, because that way you make as many £3 as you possibly can. And it's no different in the world of property and property investment. Let's say, like many people, you bought a property somewhere during your working life and you were enjoying the extra rental income. So that property today is worth around about £400,000. Let's say you bought the property for cash, so you got no mortgage. Let's look at the options, because it's always about the numbers. It's never about opinion, it's never about thoughts, it's always about the numbers. So let's say you sold that property and you receive into your bank £400,000. How much tax you got to pay on that? You got to pay something called capital gains tax. And let's say you sold it, I'm going to make my life easy. Let's say you sold it for £410,000. Well, you'd have just made a £400,000 capital gain because you just sold it. The relevant rate of capital gains tax on residential property is 28%. You would lose 28% of that in tax. Boom, straight away, out the window, gone. Sayonara, see you later, it's not yours anymore. Your capital gains tax bill, before you get to do anything, £112,000. So you're not getting 412. You've worked your entire life, you bought this property, and you just, 112k out the window in tax, and it's got nothing to do with your income. That's capital gains tax. Okay, so you're not getting 400, you're getting 300. So you've just toasted 100 grand. And you might think, well, that's not too bad because I've still got 300. You're thinking about it the wrong way. How much do you earn? How many years would it take you to earn £100,000 after tax? The average person in the UK earns 35 grand or something. After tax, they earn, let's say, 25 grand. So, it's only £100,000 in capital gains tax. So that's 4 years of your life you just gave away. Don't do that. Can I do it some other way, Paul? Yes, you can. You can absolutely do it some other way. So I want to talk to you about how you refinance and release equity and do it another way and don't pay all that crazy tax. The rent on that property is around about £1,700-1,800 a month. You'd have no mortgage on it. Yes, you'd have some letting agent fees, you'd have some repairs, a little bit of maintenance. So let's say you clear £1,500 after all your expenses. So that's £18,000 a year. Now, I can't tell you how much tax you'd have to pay on that because it depends how you do it. Could, if I knew your personal circumstances, is it in a limited company? And that's all Touchstone stuff. Touchstone Education can teach you that. That is just bread and butter. So I'm not saying you're stupid if you don't know it. I'm saying you're stupid if you don't learn it. I'm saying you're completely and utterly stupid if you don't invest the time required to work out how do I minimise my tax bill on that £15,000. absolute Fruit Loop. Stupid, okay? So I'm not going to sit here and tell you how to do it because that's baby stuff. And if you don't know how to do it, I'm not calling you a baby. I'm just saying you need to go and learn how to do it with Touchstone Education, okay? Number one, if you sell the property, you're giving away £15,000 of income. Number two, you're paying £100,000 in tax. Why do most people do that? Well, the reason most people do that is because most people are not financially successful. And if you go and do the stuff that most people do, you've got to be like them. So what I'm giving you is an insight into why I can afford to sit here in a chair in the middle of the day recording videos, talking to you instead of working for a living. Because I don't. But if you look behind me, out here, there's billions and billions of pounds of property out there. Now, do you think all the people that own properties out here in Monaco or own bits of beach or hotels or whatever, do you think they understand the rules of money? Do you think they understand how to become wealthy? Or do you think when they get to 60 or 70 years old, they sell all their stuff, pay through their nose for tax, and then try and live off nothing for the rest of their lives? What I want to tell you about is what happens if you understand it the right way. You could release 40, 50% of the value, 60% even, of the value of that property and go and buy two more. How are you working that out, Paul? Let's say flats in that area are now worth 80k, but you only paid 10 and you got no mortgage. So you go and release, let's say £40,000. How much tax do you have to pay on that £40,000? Nothing. Why? Well, because you haven't sold it. And if you don't understand that, you need to go and do some courses, read some books. There is no tax, okay? None. You take that £40,000 and you split it into two 20s. Why? 20 is 25% of 80, isn't it? If flats in that area 30 years ago are worth £80,000, you release some equity from property number one, you go and buy two more. You now got three. £40,000 mortgage on that unit, write this down if you need to. £40,000 on this one, 60 on this one, 60 on this one. But they're now worth 160. So you've got 100k of equity in this one, 100k of equity in that one, and 120k of equity in that one. Check the numbers, I'm right, aren't I? How do you know this stuff, Paul? Well, it's how I live my life, it's how I made my million. You would remember this stuff too if you're sat on the balcony of a £25 million flat in Monaco talking to a camera for a living because you don't have to do anything. You'd remember those numbers. Could you? And the average flat is now worth £160,000. So per flat, you now know, because you followed the numbers, you've stopped the video, you've written it down, how much you need to release in order to buy another one if they're worth 160? 40. So can you release at least enough money to buy two flats for each of them? Yeah, you can. Instead of having three, from each of those three, you release enough money to go and buy two more. So you go and buy 6 extra. So how many have you now got? You've got 9. Each property that you've got becomes a little seed, becomes a seedling to allow you to buy 2 more in 7 to 10 years time. So per property that you've got, every 7 to 10 years, you triple it. So let's say you'd done nothing more than I did 40 years ago, but instead of just keeping it and sitting on it like a numpty, you actually released cash, you released equity. And if you're feeling sore, good. I'm trying to irritate you, I'm trying to get under your skin because I don't want you to carry on doing what you're doing. So if you want me to sit here saying, yeah, you're some sort of super genius because you got one investment property, I'm not going to say that. I am never going to say that. Because 40 years ago, let's just take 40 years and let's just do it 4 times. So 40 years ago, 1 property, 10 years later, becomes 3. Following me? If over the last 40 years, because you understand how to refinance a property, you've grown 1 property into 81. Let's now do those numbers. The average property gives you about a buy-to-let, a simple buy-to-let. So never mind service accommodation, never mind lease options, never mind all the advanced strategies that we can teach you. But here's the thing, in my world, you got to learn that right. I got no problem here. I'm worth it. I can sit here and tell you what to do. I'm learning how to become a billionaire because Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, they've earned the right. They're talking, I'm listening. So if you don't have the kind of money I'm talking about, I'd encourage you to listen to people that know what they're talking about because they've done it. I saw a message in a Facebook post yesterday, it doesn't matter who posted it, and it's about service accommodation, which I guess I'm known for. And what she said is this: all I did was read Paul's book, and because I read Paul's book on service accommodation, I came along and I did a course on service accommodation, and I did that 8 weeks ago. I set up my first service accommodation unit 2 weeks ago, and all I did was what Paul told me to do, and in my first 2 weeks, I just made £8,000. Tell me that wouldn't make you smile on the inside. You wrote a book, you did a course, I don't know what you did. You did something. Somebody did what you told them to do, and in just 2 weeks, they made £8,000. How good would that make you feel? Now, I don't get that once in a blue moon. I don't get that twice a year. I get that on a daily basis. So if you're wondering, why do you do what you do, Paul? A selfish reason? Is it makes me better at what I'm doing? It's you all challenge me. You don't understand what I'm talking about. So you challenge me, which makes me, forces me to get better at explaining it and better at doing it. Those that can do, those that can teach, do better. But it also gives me those stories. It gives me those glimpses into your life. So you want to reward me for this video, for this channel. Simple. Do what I say and then tell me what it allows you to do. Hope you've enjoyed this edition of How Do You Refinance? Now, if you need more detail, go and learn how to do it. I've given you the what you can do. That should inspire you to learn how to do it. You are wonderful. Go get rich. I'm Paul. I'll see you next time.